Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AFA Chairman of the Board, Sandy Schlitt.
Thank you. Welcome back. On behalf of our Air Force Association, welcome again. And you know, I mentioned yesterday how our Air Force seems to put together the right people for the right time. Well, we have the right team in place for the right time. You've heard one of them yesterday, and today you'll hear his partner. As the Chief of Staff of our Air Force, General Schwartz is a senior uniformed Air Force officer for the organization, training, and equipping of all our active duty, our Guard, our Reserve, civilian forces serving in the United States and overseas. He's a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he and other service chiefs function as military advisors to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council, and of course, the President. Prior to assuming his current position, he serves as Commander, United States Transport Command in Scott, and he's a command pilot with 4,200 flying hours. Please welcome to the stage the United States Air Force's Chief of Staff, General Norton Schwartz.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for being here today and for that very warm welcome. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your extraordinary leadership. Few know how much you care, how hard you work, and importantly, how well you represent the needs of our Air Force to partners in the nation's defense, sir. Thank you. And Undersecretary Connaughton, again, we appreciate your being here, for your dedication to the Air Force mission and its remarkable people. And if I may, you know, the Secretary and I would be ineffective, frankly, were it not for a leadership team of 4 stars and MAJCOM command chiefs. May I ask them to rise? They do not get recognition or enough acknowledgement. Please stand, if you don't mind, the MAJCOM command chiefs and our 4 stars. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it really is a privilege to be here again and at this fantastic conference and to address this amazing audience. And once again, Mike Dunn and the AFA team have put together an outstanding venue, a perennial favorite of air and space and cyber practitioners and advocates and enthusiasts. And as always, we express our thanks to the Gaylord for providing this very, very magnificent venue, for managing the incredible logistical requirements of this conference. But ladies and gentlemen, I ask you now to buckle your seatbelts, because for the next 50 minutes or so, I have some thoughts I'd like to share with all members of our Air Force family. Since entering office more than 3 years ago, Secretary Donnelly and I have been focused on meeting 5 priorities that demanded immediate and continuing attention: reinvigorating the nuclear enterprise, partnering with joint and coalition partners to win today's fight, developing and caring for our airmen and their families, modernizing our air, space, and cyber inventories, organization and training, and of course, recapturing acquisition excellence. In the ensuing years, airmen have performed magnificently, amassing many noteworthy accomplishments, both in supporting these 5 priorities and in other mission areas, both on and off the battlefield. And as a result, we have largely normalized the areas of earlier critical concern. And now we can look to the future with optimism and purpose in doing what we do best and uniquely. And that is providing the nation with air and space and cyber effects that are ready and timely, tailored and precise, globally postured but regionally relevant. We can be proud of the progress in the Air Force nuclear enterprise, for example, where we have restored a level of surety, safety, and reliability that the American people rightly expect and properly demand. But we must be absolutely clear, no matter how much trust and confidence we earn or restore, our pursuit of perfection is never done, and our stewardship of two of the nation's three legs of the nuclear deterrent triad must always remain ironclad. We have implemented significant organizational changes to strengthen direct oversight and accountability by the Air Force's most senior leaders, Secretary Tonley and me as well, invested heavily in our nuclear professionals, and institutionalized a rigorous and transparent inspection process. Without resting on our laurels, we can be proud of the result, a nuclear enterprise that is renewed and focused on its commitment to avoiding critical performance shortfalls. Our work in this critical area remains worthy, it is valued, and essential to the nation's security and its deterrence posture. And we will always be locked on sustaining excellence and maintaining required discipline in mission execution. Another area where we can capitalize on our progress and where the mission also never concludes is in acquisition and procurement. Certain aspects of the KC-46 tanker acquisition, achieved after a lengthy, if not quite perfect, competition, but nonetheless thorough and a transparent and fair process, will inform future acquisition efforts. Although we will always be accountable for responsibly expending hard-earned and precious taxpayer dollars, we can regard our acquisition processes and procedures as having achieved a notable restoration of effective control and oversight. And still more work to do remains, of course, as outlined in our acquisition improvement plan. So as we move forward on the KC-46A program, we must vigorously work to restrain requirements creep, keep costs down, and maintain production schedules. A similar mandate applies to the Joint Strike Fighter, which is a program has already experienced both overruns and delays. But because the F-35 is the future of our tactical air combat capability, and especially we are compelled to draw down our existing force size and minimize loss of capability elsewhere, both industry and government must be scrupulously disciplined and maintain current progress with the F-35A, which continues, ladies and gentlemen, to be the lowest cost, the lowest risk variant, and the one with the most stable requirements. Amidst prolonged budgetary pressures, future development efforts will have to be less ambitious because we cannot assume the kind of risk that past acquisition strategies have incorporated in their development plans. A recent GAO assessment found that some 62 selected major weapons system programs across the Department of Defense, most suffered cost increases and schedule delays because programs ambitiously attempted to proceed through critical junctures on the strength of insufficient scientific knowledge and technical ability. The assessment found that approximately 85% of the programs began development without having demonstrated sufficient maturity in all of the required technologies. Although historically, the Defense Department has has had more trade space to advance the state of the art. We now must be more calibrated in pushing the technological envelope. We must be ruthlessly honest and disciplined when operational requirements allow for more modest and less exquisite, higher confidence production programs. And while we cannot be inflexibly dogmatic about technology readiness levels and triggers, we cannot afford to advance unproven technologies from the science and technology realm prematurely into the applied research and development, particularly when no genuine operational requirement requires it. We must, in short, discern what we truly require and what we merely desire. Our overarching strategy should be for industry and government together to appraise and adhere to genuine operational requirements and elevate manufacturability earlier in the acquisition process so that we can deliver better, more rapid response solutions to keep pace with our highly dynamic security environment. We must also partner to compensate for manufacturing readiness shortfalls and narrow gaps in manufacturing technology and know-how. Collectively, our ability to be disciplined and minimally proprietary will determine our success in squeezing every bit from each taxpayer dollar and every bit of low to moderate risk capability from our future weapon systems. In any case, we require straight talk from everybody. Government must ensure stable requirements and reliable funding streams, while industry must bid according to realistic estimates and resist offering to sell more than what is operationally required. Because the success of the military and industry are now mutually related, perhaps more so than ever before, and especially with the ongoing convergence of fiscal pressures and strategic uncertainty, there is no trade space or time or patience to overpromise and then only to underdeliver. There can be no blank checks for surplus capability. That is for the government or windfalls for industry. It's where we are. Discipline in our acquisition efforts not only fulfill our promise to be prudent and trustworthy stewards of American taxpayer dollars, it ensures that our brave fighting men and women, the lifeblood of our force, are properly equipped and ready to act. But uncertainty about our future security environment means that much will be asked of them. We therefore have an even greater responsibility to ensure that our airmen are properly equipped, educated, trained, and exercised so that they are at maximum readiness when they are called upon to perform and become battle-tested in a wide range of contingencies. We will intensify our efforts to develop our airmen deliberately, arming them with the intellectual and the experiential strength that is on par with the advanced capabilities of the weapon systems we provide. And while our airmen are conducting Air Force operations on behalf of the nation, we know that their families will ever faithfully provide support to their efforts, sacrificing in their own often uncelebrated ways. And as long as we remain engaged in prolonged conflict, airmen and their families support will remain a key focus area, and we will always recognize and honor their accomplishments and sacrifice, just as AFA is doing this week with families for the very first time at this conference. because many of the family support challenges revolve around deployments. Airmen and their families deserve a personnel system that is more consistent with and more supportive of the deployment process. Our experience with more than 2 decades of sustained overseas operations highlights several shortcomings with the process that we instituted when we transitioned from a garrison to an expeditionary force. Our experiences also emphasize the importance of presenting recognizable Air Force forces, both in place and forward deployed, to meet combatant commander requirements. Therefore, at the next Corona, we will examine how to form a better linkage between deployment and assignment cycles, to better synchronize their rhythms, to facilitate deployment of airmen, their immediate leadership, and their unit equipment together as teamed capabilities, and to standardize the presentation of Air Force forces based on existing recognizable units. By moving from a unit type code model involving manufactured subunit or suborganizational elements to a model that is more unit-based, we can better ensure experienced leadership and personnel remain assigned to the unit that is preparing to deploy to support global combatant commander requirements. And we will also ensure that these teams are appropriately sized across 28 existing and specific airspace and cyber capabilities. The ultimate goal is to ensure predictability for more coherent aggregations of Air Force capability, less serendipity in the formation of expeditionary units once they are deployed, consistency with global force management and adaptive planning guidance, and accountability for the proper support of combatant commander requirements. Certainly, our joint interagency and coalition teammates value and will continue to rely on the distinctive capabilities that airmen provide every day. It is difficult not to be proud of our courageous airmen, humble, everyday men and women who perform remarkable deeds and achieve extraordinary results. Tech Sergeant Ted Hoffnet is one such airman. As a Joint Terminal Attack Controller attached to a Special Operations Team in Afghanistan, with 20 U.S., Afghan, and coalition teammates, they were on a mission when they encountered a numerically superior 70-person Taliban force. And during the engagement, Sergeant Hoffneck turned the tide of the fight by leveraging combat air power with 8 fixed and rotary wing assets with deadly precision. An hour into the battle, the enemy launched a violent ambush, blasting away with improvised explosive devices, heavy machine gun fire, and barrages of rocket-propelled grenades that separated his team. Despite the extreme hazard, Sergeant Hoffneck organized a small team of Afghan fighters to recover his isolated teammates. And while engaging the enemy with personal firearms, he and his team evacuated the team members who were separated, even carrying one injured Afghan partner on their shoulders to a helicopter landing zone approximately 2 kilometers away. That is 1 click on foot, and then the final on a cargo vehicle. And all the while, he administered life-saving aid to the critically wounded survivors and coordinated the final actions for evacuation. Sergeant Hoffneck, this nation is fortunate to have you in her service, exemplifying commitment to duty, displaying valor under fire, and favoring humility over glory. Nonetheless, I ask that you please stand in front of your peers for well-deserved recognition. Sergeant Huffneck and many, many others who quietly perform the missions such as those like his which are chronicled in this year's installment of Portraits in Courage inspire us to believe in the broader consequence of individual successes. I urge you to pick up a copy of this year's volume of Portraits in Courage that are being distributed certainly here at this convention, and see for yourself. This notion of selflessness and sacrifice, the likes of which are exhibited every day by airmen like Sergeant Huffneck and so many others, is the bedrock, ladies and gentlemen, of our all-volunteer force, which is exactly why we must keep faith, as Secretary Donnelly has said, with those who volunteer to serve. Such selflessness during a time of sustained operations all around the world is what makes me smile, makes me shout out that our Air Force gives no quarter to any other Air Force on the planet or member of our joint team. But the relentless escalation in personnel costs, approximately 65% since 1985, even though active duty end strength has fallen by 45% in the same period, simply is not sustainable to maintain this unrivaled all-volunteer force. As we address this trend, we will be very deliberate, very carefully considering the profound implications of potential adjustments in compensation and benefits on recruiting and retention. An important dimension of rising personnel expenses